Hey, Lindsay, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you, Aubrey? How's everything out in Arizona?
Excellent. It's hot right now, but we're managing.
Oh
I
my
have a question
gosh.
for you. I
Okay.
don't know this about you. We've never talked about this. We're talking about
Mhm.
justice to get today. We had a great question from a listener, and I'm wondering, have you ever felt like you didn't receive justice? Not just that something was
Ooh.
unfair, but like an authority figure or law enforcement treated you unjustly.
Uh, to be honest, I'm lucky to say that I can't think of anything. Like nothing stands
Nice.
out in my mind, and I'm very lucky because I know that a lot of people can't say that.
Right.
What
Right?
about
That's
you?
a definitely coming we recognize it's coming from a place of privilege if we've never been
Yes.
treated unjustly by authorities, because a lot of
Mhm.
people do have those experiences for whatever
Yes.
reason, right? It might be based on race or language. There's all kinds of possibilities. I did have an
100%.
experience. I was given a trespassing violation as a college student, and I did
Mhm.
felt it did not have to do with my race, I don't think, but it did have to do with my age. Like, because we were young, hanging out in a park, and there
Oh,
had
we've
been
heard
some
this
kind of
story.
graffiti about that. Yes, I've told the story before. And so I was given a misdemeanor, and it felt very unjust. It was like 10 p.m. in a park, and we were doing nothing. We were just like sitting there talking, and we were given these
Interesting.
trespassing violations. And we said, we're not doing anything. And too bad, you get this fine. And it felt very unjust.
Wow, yeah, I mean, that's tough, right? I imagine that's a very angry feeling that could become an angry feeling, right? Because you feel
Yes.
angry. I think the thing that I can think of as an example, I know a lot of times in small countryside towns, you have cops that have a quota for speeding
Mm,
tickets. Like, the
yes.
town needs to make a certain amount of money on speeding ticket violations, and so they will be, you know, right past the sign where the speed limit went from 60 to 35, and they'll just get you. Right? It hasn't
Yes,
happened to
I've
me,
gotten
but it
some of
happens to a lot
those.
of yeah.
I've had that happen too, or in like in a school zone where they
Right.
get you where you can't, like, I've turned a corner, so I haven't, the sign saying it went down to 15 was like back
Yeah.
there, and I wouldn't have been able to see it. I got a fine there once. Yeah, it happens.
Yeah,
And you're right. It doesn't feel good. We have this
totally.
righteous indignation, we call it, where we feel
Mhm.
like we're justified in being extremely angry, and we feel
Ooh.
like we've been treated unfairly, and it's not a good emotion to have.
Yeah, righteous indignation. I wanna say that again, just highlight that as a bonus word, big expression, right, for our
That'll for
listeners
sure be in the
today.
app, right? That is a big one.
That will be in the app for sure. And guys, by the way, if you want a better way to consume All Ears English, it's in the iOS Android app. So go over to allearsenglish.com/app. Aubrey, you choose our keywords that will be the words that will move you guys to 99% fluency. And those are all
Exactly.
in there, highlighted for you along with transcripts in real time. So good.
Yes. Yeah, so go to allearsenglish.com/app, APP, to make sure to get that, both iOS and Android.
Yes. All right. So Aubrey, we have a question from an amazing listener today. Shall I go ahead and read it?
Yes, please.
All right. Thanks for the amazing podcast. They're really interesting and helpful. I learned some useful expressions to use beyond the business context, but as a non native speaker, I always find it ambiguous when people use some expressions that are not that straightforward. For example, that makes the two of us, or justice has no arms. Can you share some practical examples so I can understand and use them in daily life? Thanks, Ben from China. Now, if you guys also listen to our business English podcast, this might sound familiar, right, Aubrey?
Yes, we answered the first half of Ben's question on the Business English Podcast, episode
Yes.
121.
Mhm.
It was called Excited for Today's Episode. That makes two of us,
Yes.
because that phrase we use so often in business English, but it's definitely relevant whether you work in English or not. So be sure you're following that podcast so you don't miss any episodes.
Yeah, but today's is going to be a completely different answer to answer the second one, right? Justice has no arm. So where do we start today,
Exactly.
Aubrey?
Yeah, we had to save this for a separate episode because it's packed
Totally
here. There's
different.
so
Yeah.
many phrases with the word justice. And I really did a deep dive on Google and could not find this anywhere. Justice has no arms, but I found some very similar phrases. Have you heard that one? Justice has
No, I
no
thought I was just
arms,
gonna be I thought this would be another episode
where
where I
you
learned
learn
something
something.
new from you, Aubrey, but it's not. Yeah, I agree. I don't know this expression. So
No. So
now I
there's a
know.
chance the student may have misheard, or someone may have misspoken when they
Okay.
heard it. That is not commonly used in English, but there are a few expressions that are. For example, the long arm of justice. We're going to share three today that we do use in English that have the word justice, kind of describe them, share some examples so that you can use them and understand them when you hear them.
Yeah, I mean, the one that came to mind that I think I've heard I think I've heard President Obama use this. It's, "The arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice," right?
Mm,
That's another
that's
great
good.
one. And so that's one that comes up, but let's see what we've got for
That's
today,
going to be
Aubrey.
very related to our third one here. Justice has no timetable. So yeah, we'll go into
Mm,
all of these. It's interesting because social justice is on a lot of people's minds. The Barbie movie really covered a lot about this. You know, there's a
yes.
lot that goes into change, social change, and creating justice for everyone, equality, social equality, and social justice. So
Yeah.
let's dive into this first phrase here.
Here we go. So the first one, guys, is the long arm of justice. So maybe that was similar to what the person heard. Maybe this is what our listener Ben
It
heard.
could be. Yeah,
Yes.
it is. That's what I imagined. This means just the ability of law enforcement or police to find, catch, and punish people who commit crimes.
Okay. So, for example, the long, the long arm of the law finally caught up with her 10 years later. So, does this just mean eventually everyone gets caught? Is that kind of what it's saying, sort of,
Yes,
Aubrey? Yeah.
sometimes it might take a while, but
Yeah.
eventually there's a punishment, right? So this
Mhm.
was the long arm of the law. I should have said justice. We say both. We say the long arm of the law, just meaning like eventually people will receive some type of punishment, legal ramification when they
Yeah.
break the law. The
Yeah.
long arm of justice often means a little bit different. Even it's sort of more like even if the law doesn't ever punish you, the
Mhm.
long arm of justice will, meaning there will be some kind of repercussion for you
Yes.
in a changed nature, in your life being worse if you are, doing things that are not on the up and up.
Well, yeah. I mean, this is something that we study in my Buddhist practice, right? This is
Mm,
karma 101. That's
right,
actually what it is.
exactly.
Karma or kama, as they say in
Hmm.
Buddhism, that's the same thing, right? It's eventually going to ripple out and create some kind of effect. Um, every action has a
Exactly.
reaction, right? It's just action out in the world. So,
Yes. And
yeah.
we use that phrasal verb to say something will catch up to you, right? Let's say
Yeah.
someone steals and they have
Mhm.
no problem. They don't feel guilty. They don't think they'll ever get caught. You might say it's going to catch up to you. And that might not mean that eventually the authorities are going to catch you and you're going to be fined or thrown in jail. It might just mean you are going to become a dishonest person and that will have its own ramifications.
Oh yeah, for sure. And also, living with that, most people would experience some kind of guilt, right? And
That's
so
the thing, right? You might
that's
be racked with guilt. People might no
right.
longer trust you. Think of
Yeah.
all of the
A
consequences.
lot of things for sure. Okay, so that's the first one. What is the second one, Aubrey?
Yeah, so this one is justice has no color. And this is
Mhm,
said to indicate that the law applies equally to everyone, regardless of race, right? So
mhm,
this is used a lot when people are actually talking about that it's not accurate, but should be, right? Because some people believe that systemic racism exists in the legal system, at least in the United States. When we
mhm.
look at the statistics, this seems to definitely be the case, right?
Yeah, for
So
sure.
you'll hear this with social activism. People might say justice should have no color.
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, the only thing I can think about when I think about this is the Central Park 5.
Mm,
You
yes.
remember the
Yes.
boys? I think a
Yes.
number of them, if not all of them, went to jail for quite a long
Yes.
time.
I just
Like,
watched the movie
oh, you
Till
just did?
about Emmett Till.
Oh
I
my
don't know if you've
gosh.
seen that.
Oh,
There's
the movie is
unfortunately
heartbreaking.
innumerable stories, right? When you see a
Oh,
list of all of the deaths that have, from either police brutality or otherwise,
yes.
that's what's really mind-boggling is you think of the 10 or 12, maybe 15 you know of that you could name, and
Mhm.
then you see the list of hundreds that a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah, but I think I heard more recently one of the members of the Central Park 5 is now running for local office in New
Oh,
York.
wow.
So that's kind of cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
that would be exciting.
interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah, there are definitely a lot of stories you can look at. We had seen one, an article called "The Color of Justice" in the New Yorker, where it was talking about a police officer that shot and killed Michael Brown, an 18-year-old unarmed black man in Ferguson, Missouri. And
Right.
then it just had this statistic in that article. It said that in a Pew Research poll, it showed that 80% of African Americans believe that this Ferguson case raised important racial issues,
Yeah.
while only 37% of whites felt felt the same.
Oh
So
my
that's where
gosh.
you kind of see the difference in the awareness of the issue or how
Mhm.
much people believe that it actually is an issue. That sometimes is where we really need the social change in just being aware of the statistics and the issue and being open-minded to it
Yeah, for sure. For
and
sure.
not trying to hide from the problem.
Yeah, I mean, we did have a nice kind of societal awakening to some extent in 2020 with Ferguson, and with different marches and things going on, which was really cool because people were at home and sort of noticing what was actually going on for once. So I feel like there's been a little bit more awareness in the last few years than maybe 10 years before. But we still have a lot of work to do, don't we, Aubrey?
Absolutely.
Okay, Aubrey, what is next? Do we have a third one?
Yes, this one is justice has no timetable. So, this is what you were talking about that quote, right? That just means it takes time to build social justice. But I believe this is sort of implied that it's always leading toward it, right?
Yeah.
Just sort of naturally, that there might not be a timetable. It's going to take time. It's going to be slow, but it will come eventually.
Yes, and Stacey Abrams is a well-known now, is she governor of Georgia or,
She's a former Georgia state representative
okay,
and a
state
current
representative.
voting rights activist.
Good,
Yes. And she
alright.
said in a speech, justice has no timetable, it just has a destination.
Perfect. Yeah, yeah, she is definitely an exciting political figure, kind of on the rise. So I'm looking forward
Yes.
to see what she, seeing what happens with her career and is she gonna get in there and make a difference in our
Yes, let's hope,
system?
right? Yes,
Yeah, let's
justice
hope so.
campaigns, I think, understand that progress isn't easy. It's not
Yeah,
quick.
for
We
sure.
interviewed Jamila Ball on the All Ears English podcast a little while ago, episode 1471. It was called
Right.
How You Can Help Create Language Justice with Jamila
Yeah.
Ball. And this was really fascinating because we don't always think about social justice with language. And if, our articles available in a person's first language so that they can have all of the information that's available to someone who speaks English or speaks one of the more common languages that news is translated into.
Yeah, I love it. And before we do our takeaway today, I've been meaning for us to do an episode here on the important Supreme Court justice decisions that just came down in June.
Mm.
Big Supreme Court decisions come down at the end of June every year, and now we're in September for this show. So we've missed a little bit of a window, but we could bring it in because
It's
there's a
never too
lot
late to talk
going
about
on
it.
right now, Aubrey,
Right.
in the Supreme Court with the justices, with the public losing respect and trust for the justices and the Supreme Court itself. And I think we're in a little bit of a crisis right now with people,
Yes.
not completely trusting what the justices are doing in their personal lives.
Yes.
And so we can bring that in. We can also talk about the cases that were just decided on: affirmative action. There was
Hmm.
student loan stuff. And then there was, what was the other one? Oh, abortion.
Yeah,
Right.
this would be really interesting to talk about. I just recently was listening to a podcast about a recent Supreme Court decision about it was a company who didn't want to do some kind of service for an LGBTQ couple, and then
Oh,
when
that
the
was the one. That
Supreme
was it. Yeah.
that was it. That when the
Yeah.
Supreme Court asked them, like, have you actually been asked to do this service and had to say no?
Nope.
They said yes. And then it was proven that they didn't. That didn't happen. It was like a fake email, like a fake account.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
yeah, people are sort of losing trust because the Supreme Court never didn't really look into it well enough and didn't insist on the evidence. And so
100%.
it's sort of feeling like, oh, do we have the checks and balances to make sure that this
Right.
body of justices is doing what the
Yes.
general public
Yeah.
would like to have
It's
happen with their laws?
exactly. It's supposed to be an independent body of government,
Right.
right? It's not
Right.
supposed to be influenced by any other body of government, but particularly with that case, I think we're going to come back to it, guys. Hit follow on all
We
our English.
should.
We
Yes.
will
If you
come
want to
back
hear
to it.
more
We'll
about this,
explain what
be
happened
sure to
there.
follow.
Good stuff. But we should wrap it up for today, Aubrey. That was just a teaser of what we could get into this fall. Where should we leave our listeners today?
Yeah, well, you can definitely see how deep and meaningful connections and conversations come up when you're discussing justice, right? There are several phrases where we use justice. You can speak about this with friends, close, family, but
Yeah.
you definitely want to be open-minded to hear what others think. We recognize that you out there listening may have very different political views from ours. These are charged issues where people will have different opinions, but you need the vocabulary and the skills to be able to have those conversations respectfully where you can listen to both sides, share your opinion. And that's a
Yeah.
difficult thing to do in a second language.
Right. And then you can extend into your own court system in your own country, guys. Have conversations. Do people trust decisions of your Supreme Court in your country? How does that extend into politics for you? Love the topic, Aubrey. Big topic, but I think our listeners are ready for it. Right? This is
Yes,
the
I
good
love
stuff
it.
that we can talk about and become
I
better
know.
people and more informed. Yeah,
Yes, absolutely. You are at the language level where you can get involved in the fight for social justice in your first language and as well as in English. So, yeah, don't shy away from it. Have those conversations to help build awareness in yourself and in others.
I love it. Good stuff. Aubrey, I'll see you on here very soon. You have a good rest of your day.
You too. Thanks, Lindsay. See ya.
Bye.